Louis-Pierre Gignac, President and CEO of Mining Ventures. We're producing at Tocantinzinho in Brazil and starting construction at Oko West in Guyana, which will bring us to 500,000 ounces of production when that's complete by 2028.
Hi, Louis-Pierre. Good to see you. Good to see you. Right. Nameplate capacity at Tocantinzinho, and we're going to talk a little bit about obviously Oko West today and also Gurupi. But first, can we kind of just set the scene? You obviously hitting that first target of 500,000 ounces is fantastic. Ultimately, we're still aiming for that 1 million ounce a year production, are we?
Well, 1 million will assume additional assets coming into the production profile, but I think that's the point. Is Gurupi is advancing nicely. We haven't put a specific timeline on that one, but as we keep advancing, we're seeing that as a potential third asset that will look to push into our production profile.
So, right. Okay. Okay. We have to have growth stories always, and we have to have ambition and aggression as well. So it's just trying to understand where you're at and where your thinking is. You just announced obviously putting together of this financing package, and with the free cash flow you're producing as well, you sound like you're in control.
Yeah. No, we're well positioned. I mean, like you just said, I think with TZ we're at 175 to 200,000 ounces of production. Oko West brings us to 500. So if you look at that growth profile, that's a significant growth profile over the next couple of years into a gold price environment that's at all-time highs. So yeah, we're essentially one of the highest growth profile stories in the market, if you ask me. And we announced the financing for Oko West just earlier this week. So it consists of a bank, essentially corporate facility, for 350 million to start, with an accordion feature where we can add 150 million to it. So that, combined with our cash flow from TZ, makes us fully financed to deliver on Oko West. So really nice outcome, limiting shareholder dilution at this point for our next leg of growth with Oko West.
Right, and obviously you've been through this with TZ already, obviously Tocantinzinho, but any kind of lessons from that? It was a slightly different era, and we're now in a very strong gold environment, very strong margin environment. But any kind of lessons that you're kind of bringing through into the way that you're tracking and attacking Oko West?
I mean, we're always kind of taking the same approach of fast tracking things. That's always been our strategy here, is to essentially get ourselves involved with projects where we can progress them very rapidly. So we do have our full permit that we received a couple months ago in in September. So now with the financing in place, we're going to be making a final investment decision this month, which is more of a formality, but to update in terms of what we've actually already spent on the project in terms of early works and what we have left to spend to complete the project. So it's just putting that stake in the ground that we're fully committed to building this project.
Okay, I mean, and I just want to say again, before we get onto Oko West and Gurupi in a second, in terms of the kind of corporate setup here, obviously you've got a team who have built multiple mines, and obviously TZ being your own mine, and hopefully Oko West is the next step. But in terms of that kind of PNAV valuation that companies like to value themselves on, do you feel you're there?
Well, exactly. I mean, I think with the acquisition of Reunion to get Oko West, we essentially inherited a development stage project, which is a significant one. So when you look at our PNAV, I mean, it's a mishmash of having an operating asset that's now de-risked with a development stage project that is in the process of de-risking. So yeah, we still have a PNAV right now that's based on consensus around 0.86. Which is actually below kind of our peer group. So yeah, definitely, like we experienced with TZ, we do expect to have that re-rate process taking place in our valuation as we continue developing and advancing the project. And like we have we're accustomed to doing, is keeping it on track and on budget and keeping it on the rails. So we go and get that valuation just by successfully executing on the project.
Yeah, like I thought it was worth reporting on, because I think sometimes people can look at this thing and go, "Hey, you're a $5-6 billion company. There can't be much more upside." But I think she said
Yeah.
Oko West may change that dynamic.
Well, there's the valuation in Oko West, and like we put sensitivities in our feasibility study, and we made that mistake before of capping the upper end of that sensitivity table. It seems like we're getting to the upper end of what we published in our study. But if you look at just $3,400 gold price, we're talking 4 billion US NAV. So yeah, still a lot of upside, and that's just on Oko West.
Right.
So
Okay. And we'll come on to Groupie. We will. Let's talk about Oko West. In terms of that kind of detail engineering progress, where are you in terms of what's complete and how much more to be committed?
yeah, so I mean, at the end of August, we're about 35% complete on the detail engineering. And there's a lot of issued for construction drawings that are supporting our early works construction, which is building the permanent camp facility, a barge landing, which is part of our logistics infrastructure, the access road. So in all, we've spent close to $74 million at the end of August, which is going towards the project, plus a lot of prepayments on equipment for another like 24 million. So we're already at about, just close to 100 million spend on the project at the end of August. What that's doing is really advancing de-risking the timeline. And this is a bit ahead of what we were planning in terms of schedule. All the procurement on the project related to major equipment, long lead items, that's been issued. So that's really de-risked the timeline for getting equipment, which is we're in a better situation than we were when we did TZ, just given we didn't have that float in the schedule that we do have now.
Right, and obviously you said you're going to obviously have to go through a process of giving formal notice of full scale construction. But it sounds like you've started. In terms of that kind of infrastructure build, can you kind of run through the kind of sequencing of logistics, fuel supply chains, etc., to make sure your commission readiness is there for late 2027?
Yeah, so if you look at the critical path items on the project, the current one we're dealing with now is just actually building the camp and the kitchen, the main kitchen to be able to feed people. We have about 700 people on site now. It's kind of being operated out of an exploration camp facility, so we're kind of at max capacity in terms of the workforce on site. So as we deliver on the permanent camp, the kitchen, we'll be ramping up to 1,500 plus people on the project, kind of in Q1 by Q1 next year. So that's the initial kind of critical path. The big ones, when you look at typical projects like the grinding mills, we've issued the PO for that in May. The power plant will be building a self-sufficient HFO low speed power plant that's been ordered. So yeah, the idea is we want to be able to advance the schedule or have an opportunity to do better than the schedule. But currently we're targeting first gold in October 27. So if we can do better, we'll be updating as we progress, but that's the current plan.
Okay, and in terms of targeting a kind of, well, potentially targeting a reserve update before we start construction, are you aiming to do that?
Likely not.
Okay.
Well, potentially, just in the sense that we did publish some exploration results that are post the feasibility study.
Mm.
So I think what we're demonstrating is that this ore body has more to give. So extensional drilling to the north, additional drilling actually within the pit itself, where we've interpreted and modeled additional splays off the main shear. So that's adding additional ounces to what we already have in the pit design that we have. So we'll see if it's worthwhile issuing an update before we actually start mining, but we'll make that assessment as we go. But I think there's just more to be found here on the land package. And we're continuing to explore as we build, but that is a challenge as well. Just like I mentioned, with limited space on camp, we can't do everything all at once. So we're prioritizing building the mine, but not letting go of exploration altogether. at this point.
Right, because you've got to kind of compartment, because there's also the business development component as well, isn't there? So you kind of got the ops side of things, so the build and then ops, and then you've got the business development in terms of potential M&A, and obviously exploration, organic growth. I mean, how do you silos that decision making, and certainly, I guess, any kind of allocation of capital for that matter?
Yeah, I mean, look, on the exploration side this year, we're spending. I mean, we upsized the budget on Group E based on our ability to actually execute drilling this year. So we're looking at about 25 to 26 million exploration spend this year across our three projects. So that's definitely likely going to continue and likely increase with time. So I think that's an aspect of the business that will keep growing based on the cash flow and the ability to fund that type of work. Definitely on the M&A, I mean, we don't need to do anything in the sense that we have a nice pipeline and growth, and with Group E being an asset that we can. It's and I mean it's a size of scale of project that you can have three mines on, given its 80-kilometer long greenstone belt. So there's a lot to be done just organically with what we have. But obviously we're looking at M&A opportunities. It's like planting seeds. You never know when you get to collect on the harvest. So yeah, we continue to be active looking at things in jurisdictions that fit our criteria, but definitely, South America, Guyana Shield, Brazil, those are prime jurisdictions for us.
Okay, and likely to be more of the same if it does come along in terms of the stage of development of the company, yeah?
Yeah, like we always want to start with a solid resource, and we don't need a lot of technical work to be done on a project for us to have interest in it. But definitely, we don't want to be in the greenfield exploration
No,
part of the
you need
business.
scale. Just in terms of, I guess the flip side of that, in terms of capital markets, and I think what I've noticed a lot of CEOs saying to me that actually, cost creep is still part of the equation. It hasn't gone away because COVID's gone away. And for you, obviously, you've got a bit of contingency in there, but you're ahead of schedule. You're telling me those sorts of things help or must help in terms of giving confidence to the market.
In terms of operating costs, you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, our AISC is been very close to guidance. Obviously, with gold prices going up, royalty costs are higher. But if you look at the first half of the year, I mean, our AISC was 1170 an ounce. So generating great cash flow at these price levels for sure. But yeah, we benefit from having a TZ, which is a new operation, low strip ratio, a low cost structure with access to cheap power. So our inflation pressures have been minimal at this point, but yeah, I can see how the labor markets will get tighter with people trying to push more projects, and that always happens, right?
That always happens, and I guess having a good brand helps you in that matter. In terms of operating in Guyana, obviously things are ramping up nicely. It's got a long history, but not of recent years. So how's it working in country in terms of whether it be around permits or around sort of understanding and working with local and federal government?
Yeah, I mean, the relationships with the government have been great. I mean, they clearly are very supportive of having their mining industry grow, and they've clearly been messaging that, and they've followed to the schedule more or less of what we thought we would track to in terms of permitting. But yeah, it is a small country. The specialized workforce is basically limited in country. But there is a mining culture there that dates back, to bauxite mining, gold mining with OMI back in the day. So yeah, we do have access to a good talent pool in Guyana, and we are investing in training alongside with the Ministry of Labor. So basic training in various trades, and so yeah, we do have the ability as well to bring in expats to complement the local workforce, to bring in the specialized skills that are lacking and provide that kind of training and mentoring So that's something that we're doing, and that's always been very successful. So
And you mentioned earlier, with regards to early long lead item procurement, in terms of early civil works, etc. Obviously, trying to retain control of potential bottlenecks, for yourself, but in terms of the government and their, I guess, access to capital and desire to help with kind of various other infrastructure projects which may impede your growth. I mean, how are you working with them, or is that again something that you want to kind of retain control of yourself and not be reliant on the government for?
yeah, we've had to take an approach where we're self-sufficient when it comes to infrastructure. So the barge landing that we're building, it's an infrastructure that we're developing for our project, and it's no government assistance in that. The access road that we have built to the project is built specifically for the project, and the power plant is the big thing. So in Brazil, we get to benefit from the hydroelectric infrastructure in country. In Guyana, I mean, we're starting with a different situation. So we're putting in a self-sufficient HFO power plant on site, which is kind of essentially similar, identical to what we did at Marion in Suriname. But Guyana, I think with the natural gas coming off the oil wells in country, I mean, there is a gas to energy project that's being brought online, mostly for the country as a whole. So we hope to think that there's a phase two that would be possible in the future, that we could then participate as an investor to build transmission lines, participate in the next phase, which would give us access to cheaper power at that point. So there are opportunities in country, but those will be kind of further down the road, and we'll be keen to look at those in due course. But yeah, we've taken the approach of de-risking our project by being self-sufficient.
Okay, interesting. And okay, so right, you kind of referenced the kind of potential exploration component to Oko West. Let's kind of jump onto exploration proper down at Karipi. Just starting off with kind of again setting the scene. There's a sort of recent federal court decision which helped kind of simplify the permitting framework. Do you think there's any other kind of clarification needed or administrative appeal required to understand that kind of counterparty risk?
I mean, in Guyana, it's fairly straightforward. Typically, it's you do have local ownership when it's medium scale licenses. When it converts to a PL, which is the evolution of that permit, then you can have foreign ownership and whatnot in the PLs. And we're in the next phase, which is converting the PL to a mining license. So that's the last phase of the permitting process, and we expect to get the mining license actually by the end of the year. So that allows us to start pre-stripping mining ore ahead of while we're building the facility itself. So yeah, that's the final leg in the permitting process in Guyana that we're working through, but that's more of a formality once you've received the PL.
Right. Okay. Then in terms of the, I guess, geological validation, with the data that you've got, I mean, what's the process you're going to go through trying to understand the kind of quality of that kind of legacy drill data, and will you be relogging, twinning, etc.?
Okay, you're referring to Garupi here, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I moved on to Garupi. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Yeah. So for Garupi, it's we did some surface work, so soil sampling, trenching, which is kind of preliminary in nature to identify, set up our drill targets, and that's been very successful. I mean, we know where the main trend is, and so what's interesting is you do have a lot of artisanal mining activity in the region and on the property. They're always very good at finding gold. So what is interesting is that there's part of the ground that's used by ranchers for cattle farming, and there's been no artisanal miners there because they've kept them away for their cattle farming. So it's undisturbed ground. So we're doing trench work on the continuation of the trend, which is showing mineralization at surface, on the trend, and we're talking like 500 meters to a kilometer range type distances with mineralization at surface. So this is begging for drilling. We are mobilizing the first rig on site, which will be arriving in November. So starting kind of an inaugural drill program on the project that, this project hasn't seen drilling since 2019. So very keen to get the drill turning on this and seeing what's at depth, but definitely the mineralization's at surface. So
Right.
yeah, we do see a lot of upside on Groupie. It's very clear, and just by what in the intro saying, Groupie's lining up to be a next project, in the sense that we did have this historical injunction lifted, which was a key piece to kind of reopening the path here to make progress. So we do have a lot of community support for our project, including the artisanal miners that are there. We brokered kind of relationships with them and deals where we'll allow them to continue working, but in a proper fashion. But when we have a project to move forward, there's terms agreed to whereby they need to relocate. So those are all key things that you need to put in place. So the groundwork is being done now. Obviously, with this drilling, assuming it's successful, and we very much think it will be, the idea is to expand the resource, update a resource next year, PA, and then start showing what this project can be as potential. All the historical call it studies that were done, and we're talking many years ago now, had only focused on 2 of the 3 deposits. The extensions that we're talking about right now is extensions to that 3rd deposit that was never included. So Chegatudu, which is actually on the main shear. So yeah, we see this as being something that, it's starting with a resource that's actually larger than TZ. We have 2.6 million ounces. We can get this to 4 or 5 million ounces, and this is of a scale that can then support a 200,000 plus ounce producer. So that's what we're trying to work towards. And the idea is get this drilling started and look to produce some preliminary studies next year.
Right. And you, I'm just listening to you, and you talk a very confident exploration game. And you build record as without par. You guys are known for that, and that's what you do well. And you're continuing to show that. But on the exploration side, what are you bringing through from TZ and even Oko West in terms of the way that you're going to come about this exploration? Your starting point is not zero, obviously, but you're thinking like a builder in the sense of, how do I get this or as quickly as possible into a processing facility, presumably its own, and does that kind of shortcut the process alongside having large capital pools from which and free cash flow from which to draw? Do you know what I mean? I'm just like, you definitely come across, it feels like you think differently from a regular, say, explorer as a result.
Yeah, we're definitely not an explorer in terms of, we're looking to build viable projects. So we're drilling with that in mind. So it's to be able to support something that becomes a viable project in the shortest amount of time.
Right.
And especially in this gold price environment. So yeah, that's really the name of the game. And exploration is not a one-all type thing. It's you get to a point and you always continue exploring. So I think the idea is to get it to a critical scale that then you can justify a project. And there's always can be the opportunity to expand things later if you have, massive success later with exploration. But at this point, we're trying to get it to a scale that becomes meaningful for our company where we are now. So if you look at TZ, 175, 200, Oko West is 350. Anything that's going to be meaningful to us is going to have to be 200,000 ounce range plus. So that's where we're going to push Gurupi to in a short period of time, I believe. So.
Exciting times. Been waiting for moments like this for a while. So, Louis-Pierre, appreciate you coming on. Glad things are going well, and keep in touch and let us know how you get on with that Oko West project of yours. I think people are looking Looking forward to seeing the cash flows from that too.
It will be substantial cash flow with that running at these gold prices. So yeah, we're excited about that as well.